B&B, spoilers Wednesday, January 21st. Steffy's Pleas fall on deaf ears. The bold and the beautiful spoilers for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, reveals Steffy growing more unhinged than ever about her mother's love life. Steffy's begs Taylor. Steffy Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes Wood, is in a Steffy-like panic over the idea of her mother becoming involved with Deacon Sharp, Sean Cannon. She is sure that Sheila Carter, Kimberlyn Brown, will go in for the kill if she ever gets wind that something more than a doctor-patient relationship is going on. First, Steffy appeals to Hope Logan, Annika Noel. Will Hope just talk to her father and end this already? Surely, Deacon will listen to his beloved daughter. Too bad that Hope is all in on a Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, and Deacon relationship. Anything to get her dad away from Sheila. In fact, she and Deke Sharp, Harrison Cohn, are giddy about this. Realizing that Hope isn't going to help, Steffy once again visits her mother and begs her to listen to reason. Does Taylor want to get herself killed by having an affair with a madwoman's husband? Taylor once again defends herself and insists that nothing will happen between her and Deacon. But can she really make that promise and keep it? Too late, Steffy. Too bad, Steffy. Seems to be too late to stop what she sees as a slow-motion train wreck. Deacon and Taylor are growing closer than ever and can't seem to resist their attraction to one another. Taylor does her best to tell Deacon that nothing can happen between them, but Deacon is insistent and just might get his wish. Sheila still seems to think that Taylor saved her marriage when Deacon is on his way to ruining it. Does Deacon feel any guilt at all with what is doing? He is playing with fire and also playing with two women's feelings. Taylor knows what is happening is wrong, but Deacon doesn't seem to see it that way, and Sheila will certainly feel it is wrong. The question remains, how changed is Sheila? She claims she is a new woman, but is she? In the high-stakes, fashion-forward world of Los Angeles, the sun might be shining over the Forrester estate, but for Steffy Forrester, a dark cloud has moved in that no designer wrap or ocean view can dispel. Today's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful, January 22nd, 2026, delivered a masterclass in heartbreak and mounting dread, leaving fans reeling as Steffy's desperate pleas to save her mother from a lethal mistake fell on entirely deaf ears. For weeks, we have watched the tension simmer, but today it finally boiled over into what can only be described as a tragic turning point for the Forrester family. A mother's defiance, a daughter's despair. The heart of today's tragedy lies in the crumbling wall between Dr. Taylor Hayes and the one man who should be strictly off-limits, Deacon Sharp. Steffy, ever the protector of the Forrester legacy and her own children's safety, cornered Taylor in a scene that was as raw as it was frustrating. We saw Steffy, usually the poised CEO, stripped down to a daughter begging for her mother's life. Her argument was simple, logical, and terrifying. Deacon is married to Sheila Carter. "Mom, you are playing with fire in a house made of gasoline," Steffy cried out. Sheila isn't just troubled. She is a predator. If she finds out you're the reason Deacon's heart is straying, she won't just be angry, she'll be lethal. But Taylor, played with a haunting sense of professional delusion by Rebecca Budig, stood her ground. She insisted her connection with Deacon was therapeutic, a breakthrough in progress. However, the lingering glances and the way she defended Deacon's changed soul told a different story. Taylor isn't just treating a patient. She's falling for the husband of the woman who once shot her. To Steffy, this isn't just a lapse in judgment, it's a death warrant. The hope factor, a divided front. Making the news even sadder is the widening chasm between the show's two leading ladies. While Steffy is in a state of pure panic, Hope Logan is surprisingly supportive. In a move that has ignited social media, Hope has taken the opposite path. Rather than joining Steffy in a united front to keep their parents apart for safety's sake, Hope is encouraging Deacon to follow his heart. She wants her father free from Sheila's clutches, and she sees Taylor as his North Star. This deaf ear from Hope is perhaps what stings Steffy the most. During their confrontation at Forrester Creations, the air was thick with history. Steffy sees a massacre waiting to happen. Hope sees a chance for her father to finally have real love. The tragedy here is that both women want to protect their parents, but their methods are diametrically opposed. By encouraging Deacon to be honest with Taylor, Hope is inadvertently painting a target on Taylor's back. The looming shadow of Sheila Carter. The most chilling part of today's very sad news isn't what happened, but what didn't happen. Throughout the episode, Sheila Carter remained a silent, looming threat. We saw her at Il Giardino, blissful in her ignorance, praising Taylor for saving her marriage. The irony is thick enough to choke on. Sheila believes Taylor is her ally, the doctor who kept her family together. When, not if, the truth comes out that Taylor and Deacon have shared intimate moments, Sheila's gratitude will turn into a vengeful rage that the bold and the beautiful fans haven't seen in years. Steffy knows this. Finn knows this. But Taylor? Taylor is convinced she can handle the situation. This arrogance, or perhaps loneliness, is leading the Forresters toward cliff, and Steffy is the only one screaming for them to stop. Why today felt different. Soap operas thrive on drama, but today felt like a genuine tragedy because it highlighted the isolation of the truth. 1. Finn is caught in the middle. He wants to support his wife, but he also wants to believe his mother, Sheila, has changed. His hesitation to fully back Steffy's aggressive tactics only adds to her feeling of being alone on an island. 2. The loss of control. Steffy Forrester is a woman who controls everything. Her company, her house, her life. Watching her realize she cannot control her mother's heart is a poignant, sad character study. 3. The ghost of Christmas past. Every time Steffy looks at Taylor and Deacon, she sees the blood on the floor of the Il Giardino alleyway. She isn't being dramatic. She is being traumatized all over again. What happens next? As the episode closed, the look on Steffy's face said it all. The pleas are over. The preparation for war begins. With Taylor and Deacon crossing a line they can't walk back from, and Sheila starting to sense the shift in her husband's energy. The sad news of today is likely just the prologue to a much larger disaster. Will Steffy be forced to cut her mother off to protect her children? Could we be looking at a Forrester versus Logan war that makes previous feuds look like child's play? One thing is certain. Steffy's ears aren't the only ones hearing the danger. The audience hears it, too. And as Taylor continues to ignore the warnings, we can only watch in heartbreak as the pieces of this family are scattered once more, the ghost of Christmas past. Every time Steffy looks at Taylor and Deacon, she sees the blood on the floor of the Il Giardino alleyway. She isn't being dramatic. She is being traumatized all over again. What happens next? As the episode closed, the look on Steffy's face said it all. The pleas are over. The preparation for war episode begins. Of The Bold and the Beautiful delivered one of its most emotionally devastating turns in recent memory, as Steffy Forrester found herself fighting a losing battle. One where her voice, her pain, and her desperate pleas were met not with understanding, but with silence. For a woman who has always stood tall in the face of chaos, today's developments were nothing short of heartbreaking. Steffy spoke from the depths of her soul, yet the people she needed most simply refused to hear her. From the very first moments, the tone was heavy. There was no triumphant music, no sense of hope hanging in the air, only tension, dread, and the unmistakable feeling that Steffy was about to lose something far more important than an argument. She wasn't asking for control. She wasn't issuing demands. She was begging for safety, for sanity, and for her family to finally take her fears seriously. But they didn't. A mother's fear ignored. At the core of Steffy's anguish is one undeniable truth. She is a mother first at S. She has lived through terror most people couldn't imagine. Violence, manipulation, trauma that still haunts her in quiet moments. When Steffy pleads, it isn't rooted in jealousy or power. It's rooted in survival. And yet, today her warnings were brushed aside as if they were nothing more than emotional overreactions. Steffy laid it all out. She reminded them of the past. She named the dangers. She connected the dots that others seemed determined to ignore. Her voice cracked as she spoke, her eyes filling with tears, not for herself but for her children. She made it clear, this situation isn't theoretical. It's real, it's dangerous, and it's spiraling out of control. Still, the response was chilling. Excuses were made. Justifications followed. Promises of things being different this time rang hollow. And with every dismissive reply, you could see Steffy shutting down, piece by piece, realizing that logic and history no longer mattered. Finn's silence cuts the deepest. Perhaps the most painful blow didn't come from an enemy, but from the man Steffy once believed would always stand by her side. Finn's reaction was devastating in its quietness. Instead of forcefully backing Steffy, instead of drawing a firm line, he hesitated. He listened but didn't act. And in that hesitation, Steffy saw something shatter. She wasn't asking him to choose sides blindly. She was asking him to protect their family, to put their children first, to recognize the red flags waving violently in front of them. But Finn's need to believe in change outweighed his willingness to confront the truth that hurt more than anger ever could. Steffy's face said it all. The moment she realized that the person she needed most was no longer fully with her. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was subtle, and that made it even more painful. History repeating itself. What makes today's episode so tragic is how familiar it all feels. The bold and the beautiful has shown us time and time again what happens when warnings are ignored. We've seen characters downplay danger, insist on forgiveness too soon, and trust people who have proven, again and again, that they cannot be trusted. Steffy knows this. She has lived it. She has buried loved ones. She has fled in fear. She has rebuilt her life more times than she can count. And now, watching others dismiss the very lessons she learned the hard way feels like watching a slow-motion disaster unfold. Her pleas weren't dramatic, they were prophetic. And that's what makes this so devastating. Viewers can see the storm forming. Steffy can see it. But the people around her are choosing comfort over caution, hope over reality. And in doing so, they're leaving Steffy isolated, unheard, and emotionally exhausted. A woman pushed to the brink. There was a moment today, quiet, almost easy to miss, where Steffy stopped arguing. That moment said everything. Her shoulders slumped. Her voice softened. Her eyes lost their fire. It wasn't because she stopped caring. It was because she realized she was alone in the fight. And for someone as strong as Steffy Forrester, that realization is crushing. She has always been a fighter. She doesn't back down easily. But even the strongest people have breaking points. And today felt dangerously close to hers. Instead of reassurance, she got resistance. Instead of support, she got doubt. Instead of action, she got excuses. And with each one, Steffy retreated emotionally, building walls not out of pride, but out of self-preservation. The cost of not listening. The saddest part of today's episode isn't just that Steffy was ignored. It's what that silence could cost everyone involved. When warnings go unheard on B&B, consequences always follow, and they're rarely small. Relationships fracture. Families fall apart. Innocent people get hurt. Steffy understands this pattern better than anyone, which is why her desperation felt so raw, so urgent. She wasn't trying to control the narrative. She was trying to stop a tragedy before it happens. But now, with her voice dismissed, the question becomes terrifyingly clear. What happens next? Will Steffy take matters into her own hands? Will she walk away to protect her children? Or will she be forced to watch helplessly as her worst fears come true? A lonely road ahead. As the episode closed, Steffy stood emotionally isolated, surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone. The sadness wasn't explosive. It was quiet, heavy, lingering. The kind of sadness that doesn't fade when the screen goes dark. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a fracture, a turning point, a moment that will echo through future episodes. Steffi's pleas falling on deaf ears may prove to be the biggest mistake her loved ones ever make. Because when someone with her experience, her scars, and her strength says this is dangerous, ignoring her isn't optimism, it's denial. Final thoughts, a tragedy in slow motion. Today's Bold and the Beautiful was painful to watch because it felt so real, so human. A woman begging to be heard, a family choosing not to listen, and a sense that disaster is no longer a question of if, but when. Steffi didn't lose her temper today. She lost her faith, and that may be the most heartbreaking loss of all. As fans, we're left holding our breath, knowing that when Steffi Forrester is pushed into a corner, she doesn't crumble. She makes life-altering decisions. And if her voice continues to be ignored, those decisions could change everything. A lonely road ahead. As the episode closed, Steffi stood emotionally isolated, surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone. The sadness wasn't explosive. It was quiet, heavy, lingering. The kind of sadness that doesn't fade when the screen goes dark. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a fracture, a turning point, a moment that will echo through future episodes. Steffi's pleas falling on deaf ears may prove to be the biggest mistake her loved ones ever make. Because when someone with her experience, her scars, and her strength says this is dangerous, ignoring her isn't optimism, it's denial. Final thoughts, a tragedy in slow motion. Today's Bold and the Beautiful was painful to watch because it felt so real, so human. A woman begging to be heard, a family choosing not to listen, and a sense that disaster is no longer a question of if, but when. Steffi didn't lose her temper today. She lost her faith, and that may be the most heartbreaking loss of all. As fans, we're left holding our breath, knowing that when Steffi Forrester is pushed into a corner, she doesn't crumble. She makes life-altering decisions. And the beautiful news is not just dramatic. It's deeply emotional, raw, and heartbreaking. Fans are reeling as Steffi Forrester, usually the strongest and most unshakable force in the room, is brought to her knees in a moment of desperation. In a scene that hits straight to the heart, Steffi begs her mother, Taylor Hayes, for help, forgiveness, and understanding, and the weight of that plea changes everything. This is not the confident CEO we're used to seeing. This is not the woman who fearlessly faces down enemies at Forrester Creations. This is a daughter unraveling a mother torn apart, and a family standing on the edge of emotional collapse. Steffi Forrester finally breaks. For years, Steffi has carried the burden of being the strong one. She's been the protector of her children, the backbone of her family, and the moral compass in countless battles. But today's sad news confirms what fans have suspected for a long time. Steffi has been holding too much inside for far too long. Everything begins to surface at once. The fear, the exhaustion, the guilt, and the pain she's been pretending doesn't exist. The pressure of her marriage, the constant threat of Sheila Carter, the tension between Finn and her parents, and the responsibility of keeping her family safe finally become unbearable. And when Steffi reaches her breaking point, there's only one person she turns to. Her mother. "Mom, I need you." A plea that changes everything. Steffi doesn't just ask Taylor for advice. She begs. She begs Taylor to stay. She begs her not to give up. She begs her to help her fix what feels completely broken. For Taylor, this moment is devastating. As a psychiatrist, she spent her life helping others process trauma. But as a mother, seeing her daughter crumble is a pain no training can prepare her for. Steffi admits something she's never said out loud before. She's scared. Scared she's failing her children. Scared she's losing control. Scared that every decision she makes only creates more chaos. Her voice shakes as she tells Taylor she doesn't know how much longer she can keep going like this. The Sheila Carter shadow looms large. Much of Steffi's fear traces back to one name, Sheila Carter. No matter how hard Steffi tries to protect her family, Sheila remains a dark cloud that refuses to disappear. The trauma of being shot, the ongoing anxiety, and the knowledge that Sheila is still connected to Finn have left scars that never fully healed. In today's sad twist, Steffy admits she feels trapped, caught between loving her husband and fearing the woman who gave birth to him. She confesses that no matter how much Finn reassures her, the danger feels constant. She tells Taylor she doesn't sleep well anymore. She jumps at every sound. She's always bracing for the next disaster. And worst of all, she feels guilty for not being able to move on. Taylor's heartbreak as a mother. Taylor listens, tears welling in her eyes, realizing that her daughter has been silently drowning. She blames herself. Taylor wonders if she pushed Steffy too hard to be strong, if she expected too much, if she failed to notice how fragile Steffy had become. When Steffy begs her mother not to leave, not to walk away from the family again, Taylor is visibly shaken. The fear of repeating past mistakes, of being absent when Steffy needs her most, hits Taylor like a punch to the chest. This isn't just about advice or therapy anymore. This is about a mother deciding whether she will truly stay and fight alongside her daughter. A marriage on the brink. Steffy's emotional collapse also exposes how fragile her marriage to Finn has become. While Steffy insists she still loves him deeply, she admits she feels alone in her fear. She tells Taylor that Finn doesn't fully understand what it's like to live in constant terror, waiting for Sheila's shadow to resurface. She worries that Finn's compassion for his birth mother will always come before Steffy's need for safety. And in one of the most heartbreaking moments of the conversation, Steffy whispers that she's afraid love might not be enough anymore. That admission alone changes everything. Taylor faces an impossible choice. Taylor now stands at a crossroads. Does she encourage Steffy to keep fighting for her marriage, even if it means enduring ongoing fear? Does she push her daughter to walk away and protect herself and the kids at all costs? Or does she confront Finn and demand he finally draw a permanent line with Sheila? Whatever Taylor chooses will have massive consequences, not just for Steffy, but for the entire Forrester family. Fans can already sense that Taylor's next move will ignite new conflict, especially with Ridge, Brooke, and Finn all deeply invested in Steffy's future. A role reversal that hits hard. One of the most emotional elements of today's sad news is the role reversal between mother and daughter. Steffy, once the fierce defender of Taylor, is now the one pleading for reassurance. Taylor, once the voice of strength, is visibly shaken and unsure. The dynamic shift is powerful and painfully real. This isn't a dramatic power play or a corporate showdown. This is a deeply human moment that reminds viewers why the bold and the beautiful continues to resonate after decades on the air. Fans react with tears and support. Social media has exploded with emotional reactions as fans express heartbreak over Steffy's pain. Many viewers say they were unprepared to see Steffy so vulnerable. Others praise the show for finally addressing long-term trauma instead of brushing it aside. Some fear this scene signals an even darker storyline ahead. One thing is certain, Steffy begging Taylor is not a moment fans will forget anytime soon. What happens next? This emotional breakdown feels like the calm before a storm. Will Taylor take decisive action to protect her daughter? Will Steffy make a life-altering decision about her marriage? Will Finn finally be forced to choose between his birth mother and his wife? Or is this the beginning of Steffy stepping away from everything she's fought to hold together? Today's sad news suggests that whatever comes next, it won't be easy and it won't be painless. Final thoughts. A cry for help that changes everything. Steffy's plea to Taylor is more than a sad moment. It's a cry for help that exposes years of unresolved fear, emotional exhaustion, and heartbreak. For once, Steffy isn't fighting. She isn't commanding. She isn't standing tall. She's begging. Many viewers say they were unprepared to see Steffy so vulnerable. Others praise the show for finally addressing long-term trauma instead of brushing it aside. Some fear this scene signals an even darker storyline ahead. One thing is certain, Steffy begging Taylor is not a moment fans will forget anytime soon. What happens next? This emotional breakdown feels like the calm before a storm. Will Taylor take decisive action to protect her daughter? Will Steffy make a life-altering decision about her marriage? Will Finn finally be forced to choose between his birth mother and his wife? Or is this the beginning of Steffy stepping away from everything she's fought to hold together? Today's sad news suggests that whatever comes next, it won't be easy and it won't be painless. Final thoughts. A cry for help that changes everything. Steffy's plea to Taylor is more than a sad moment. It's a cry for help that exposes years of unresolved fear, emotional exhaustion, and heartbreak. For once, Steffy isn't fighting. She isn't commanding. She isn't standing tall. She's begging.